Hello, Councilman Rasmussen here. This is the fourth in a series of videos that I'm making today dealing with, or that I'm calling budget conversations. Each one deals with one, or maybe in cases more than one, of one of the sort of big questions that we've been hearing a lot of as council members in relation to the larger budget conversations and tax conversations that we've had this year. Um, each one of these videos is intended to dig a little bit deeper into one of the major drivers of the town budget, of the town revenue and the town expenses, and sort of try and explain a little bit more of some of the complexities of how each one of these ideas works, and then ideally how they all fit together in order to sort of show you the situation that our community has found itself in for a variety of reasons, and a lot of what has led up to the large tax increase that we had to do this year. So I've already done videos on new developments in the community, residential developments mostly. I've done a video on our pension system. I've done a video on the tax assessments and tax rates to try and help folks understand a little bit of the difference between those. And this one, the fourth video, I want to talk about utilities. Because utilities are a huge driver of both expenses and revenues for our community. So as most folks, if you live here in town, you should know, Smyrna provides the utilities for the residents of the town of Smyrna. We do provide some utilities for folks who are not actually town residents. If you live in like Spruance City, you get your electric and things from us. But and then there are one-off little examples. But for the most part, if you live in town, your water, your sewer, and your utilities all come to you on one, and your electric all come to you on one bill that you're going to receive each month. And they're broken out on that. You can see your water usage, your sewer usage, and your electric usage. I want to take a little bit of time and talk about the infrastructure that supports all of that, and then talk about the rates and the revenue that come from that and sort of what that's intended to do. So let's start off with water. The town of Smyrna owns our own water system. We have a number of different pump stations, well houses. There are 3 different well houses at the moment. One of them will probably likely need to be replaced, and we'll have to put in a new one, and then water treatment facilities that go along with those well houses. So we pump our own water out of the ground here. We treat it and we put it into our own pipes that then distribute that water around town. To support that, we also have the water towers, the newest one, which is up on Route 13. But we've got the other 3 water towers that are here in town, one close to downtown, one close over towards the high school, another one that's further south down near Simon's Corner. Those water towers are there to help provide the pressure and the water reserves in this community to make sure that everybody, when you turn on your tap, we get enough water pressure coming out, and that allows everyone to have access to safe, treated drinking water. And obviously, if you want, you can use it for washing your car and all the other stuff as well. But drinking water is really why we have a water system. So that's where our water comes from. Sewer is a combination of the town and the county. So Smyrna does not own our own sewer treatment plant. We actually work and pass sewer off to Kent County, and they do all of the treatment for it. We own the pipes that are in the ground around town. We are responsible for those, but then there is the pump station that is located down the end of Locust Street, sort of behind Brickworks in that area, that then connects with Kent County's sewer lines, and ultimately that sewer is transported out and it's processed and treated by Kent County. So Kent County bills us for that service of doing all of that sewer treatment. I think a lot of people have heard about this in the news lately because Kent County has their own set of financial challenges and needs more sewage treatment capacity, and has ultimately passed on substantial sewer treatment costs to our communities. And we're seeing at least 10% a year growth in our sewer treatment costs that we have for Kent County. So, but from an infrastructure perspective, we own the pipes in town, but ultimately your sewer is sent off to Kent County for treatment, and Kent County bills us back for that cost. And then for electric, electric is a little bit more complicated because one, we can't pump electric out of the ground, and two, we can't send electric waste someplace else. There is a pretty complicated system by which the town gets its power. Ultimately, we purchase our power most directly from DMEC, the Delaware Municipal Electric Cooperative. There's a number of different municipalities that are part of this cooperative to agree to buy power. We can get a better rate for power if we buy in a larger bulk, and DMEC is the source of that. Now that power comes in from a variety of places. It's coming in from the Conowingo Dam, and it's coming up from Indian River, and it's coming from anywhere where DMEC can buy power and get that power transmitted. The same as somebody like Delmarva Power does, right? They're buying that transmission capacity from someplace else, and then they are ultimately sending it out to their customers. Well, DMEC is buying that, it's passing its savings on to us, and then we are transmitting it out to your home. So we own a substation that's over in the Smyrna Business Park. There's also the Beasley Power Station over there. There is the field of solar panels that's over there. And ultimately, that substation has a number of different circuits in it. Those circuits send that power out to different portions of our community. As the town has grown, we have had to add on an additional circuit to that substation to meet growing demand, and then to always have at least one backup. If something goes down, we want to make sure that we have a backup that can allow us to move power around in the community, and hopefully power outages don't last all that long. Most folks, when you see a power outage at your house, if you're anywhere like my house downtown, we have the above street power lines. It's typically a squirrel that has decided to stick its tail where it shouldn't be and has knocked power out. And ultimately, because we provide that last mile distribution, we have our own power electric department. These are the guys who are driving around in the bucket trucks, the white trucks. You see them out around town quite a bit. They're the ones who are out fixing the lines, taking down trees and things when there's a storm. These are the guys who are out there in the weather that none of us want to be out in, making sure that power stays on for our community or comes back on as quick as possible if there happens to be an outage. That team of people is honestly amazingly responsive. We had a squirrel knock out power on Christmas morning at my house on my street. And within less than an hour on Christmas morning, we had folks out there. The power was restored. That's a lot. It's a wonderful thing. And if you've had issues with power here in the town, they get back on really, really fast. Versus if you live someplace else and you're relying on Delmarva Power and there's a big storm, it may be a while till the power is going to be back on in your house. So that's the picture of what the infrastructure looks like. We have a water department, we have our water and sewer department, we have our electric department, and we really manage the infrastructure here in our town. Now, what that means for most people is you get a bill from the community in response to that. Those bills are based on our cost to provide that service, as well as a little bit of money associated with paying for the infrastructure to provide it. You see that customer fee, right? Imagine your customer fee is paying for the billing, the normal operations of town. Most of the rate that you see for any of those things is our cost to provide that service. If your sewer rate is based on what we get charged from Kent County, we pass that rate back on to you. The same for electric. The rate that we are buying power from DMEC is the rate that we're passing on to people in this community. It is not a profit-making entity like you would have with Delmarva Power or Artesian Water or something like that, where they have shareholders. For us, any overage, any profit that is generated by water, sewer, and electric goes to the town. Now, Over the years, there's always been a lot of complaints that the electric or water costs or sewer costs, mostly electric, typically it's what we hear from, is high. People say, oh, it's so expensive for electric in Smyrna. So if you were to look, there have been times where Smyrna has had comparatively higher power costs. There's reasons for that. The largest reason is we raised our electric and utility rates to keep our tax rates low. That's pretty much what it amounts to. It's simpler and a little bit easier to raise your electric rates, pass those costs on to people in a monthly bill than it is to deal with tax increases. And that sounds very, very different when you say a tax raise. But that's basically what we've done. We've raised water, sewer, and electric rates in order to keep tax rates low. It is a regressive way because if you're somebody who makes $100,000 a year, your electric bill, if it's $200 a month, that's a pretty small percentage. If you're a person who makes $20,000 a year and your electric bill is $200 a month, it's a much larger percentage of your overall cost. Versus property taxes tend to be a more progressive way to fund towns. But the choice has been made for a long time. Comparatively now, Smyrna is actually right around the middle of the pack in the state for municipalities for what our water, sewer, and electric costs are. We look at this on a regular basis. We get yearly reports. We do every 3 years. We do a rate study to see what our rates are, what they should be, based on our growth needs, our capital needs. And we try to make sure that we don't want to be the most expensive place in the state. We also can't be the cheapest place in the state. Honestly, it's just not possible. So we do look at that. We do manage it. As we were making and having budget conversations this year, one of the things comes up. It's like, well, we could help close our budget gap if we raise our rates, even more than we already needed to, just to offset the increased costs that we were seeing from county and for power purchasing. But we made a decision not to increase those rates any more than we absolutely had to, and to raise taxes, which is probably what we should have been doing all along. And the reason why we should have been doing that all along is that every year, when the town brings in more money for water, sewer, and electric, that overage, right, call it profit from that system, should be being reinvested in those water, sewer, and electric systems. That means money going into paying for future capital needs like new water towers and new substations, as well as money set aside for when you have failures like we did 2 years ago on East Commerce Street, or like we've been dealing with on Locust Street for a couple of years now. Those type of infrastructure needs, either the maintenance side or the future planning side, is what those overages, that profit that is generated, is intended to help pay for. But we didn't do that. For many, many years, as far back as I can find, we have taken every penny out of those water, sewer, and electric utilities and put it into our operating budget. Basically paying for the police, paying for street department, paying for parks, paying for town hall, the general operations of our town, rather than putting that money into those utilities, water, sewer, and electric, to help plan for future capital needs and to make sure that we're able to maintain those services. Now, one of the questions that I've seen folks ask is, well, then why don't we just sell it to Delmarva Power, or why don't we sell it to Artesian Water and get out of that business because they're going to do it cheaper? First off, they're not actually going to do it cheaper. And a lot of, unfortunately, communities have found that out in the large increases that they've seen in the last couple of years. Some communities have been faced with having to sell parts of those systems, sell their electric system, sell their water system, because they have not been able to keep up with the infrastructure costs associated with providing those services. In the end, even after we start to remove some of the money, even if we stop putting all of the money from our water, sewer, and electric funds, the revenue from those, into our general fund, and put more of it into our capital needs, we still will be putting about $2 million a year into paying general operating expenses of the town from our utilities, which is the reason why we want to own our utilities. Because if we didn't own our own utilities, we would have to make up that additional $2 million in funds through taxes. Because we still have to pay bills, we still have to provide a police force, we still have to provide streets for folks, we still want to provide safe and livable communities, and that money needs to come from somewhere. Because we own our own water, sewer, and electric, means that we can, and this is really, we're talking mostly electric, but electric and water a bit here, we can help offset some of our tax rate in a responsible way. Unfortunately, we've been doing it in an irresponsible way by using a lot of that money to keep our taxes low. We can't live like that anymore, but were we to not have our water, sewer, and electric, our tax rates would need to be even higher to make up for that revenue that we can shift over into that. So it's a complicated thing. It certainly uses a lot of the resources from the town. We have a great team of folks out at Public Works who manage all of this really, really complicated stuff. But in owning our own utilities, we have more flexibility, we have more control, we can be more responsive to the needs of our community, and ultimately, it can help us keep the overall costs to our residents as low as possible. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like that when you see your electric bill come in, especially if you've had a problem. We just got through the winter time. A lot of folks get those bills when it's really, really cold and they don't realize that their heat pump is running on electric heat the whole time, and they get a surprise. Or folks who have a water leak and don't realize that and find out that even a leaky toilet can cost you $1,000 a month between water and sewer costs. So people generally aren't happy about utilities, but in the long run, it's important that the town have the capital necessary to support the growth of our utilities, the repair and maintenance of our utilities, and ultimately that those funds, rather than paying for the police department and paying for streets and other things, that they're being used for that. So that's why we see that big change, a major change in the way the town operates when it comes to utilities, in creating budget reserve accounts. So now the money that is made by water, sewer, and electric stays in water, sewer, and electric rather than coming over and paying our general operating expenses. As always, these are really, really complicated pieces. Like I said, this is the fourth of the videos that I'm doing on this. When we talk about new development, water, sewer, and electric infrastructure is part of that. When we talk about pensions, water, sewer, and electric infrastructure is part of that because it helps pay those bills. And ultimately, all of this comes down to the assessment and the tax rate. So the other three videos that I've completed so far try and take apart different pieces of this. As always, if you have questions, please reach out to me. You can find all of my contact information through the town. You can find me at my business. You can find me on Facebook here pretty easily. I try and be responsive as possible. Share the videos, ask questions, talk to folks, and the more that we all know, the more that we can understand the challenges that our community has and hopefully make smart, better, long-term decisions for what we want our community to be. Thank you all. I've got a couple more videos. I'm planning on doing at least one more to talk about economic development, and then hopefully there'll be some more down the road as questions come around. Thanks.